Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are going to wait some minutes because people are entering and connecting, so just to give them the time to enter in our workshop of today. Thank you very much. Okay, 1 minute and we can start, Irina. Okay, so it's time to open our workshop of today. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elena Romanini, member of the T-HAP team. This workshop is organized under the framework of the T-HAP periodical infusion workshops, facing crucial and challenging items and topics useful to discuss and cooperate about innovation in education. Today, the main topic is European digital credentials. It's a particular and very interesting initiative of the European Commission, very much in line with the objective of the new skills agenda, with the micro-credentials and individual learning account initiatives as well. This workshop is organized in partnership with Cento Forma, a vet center located in Italy, in Emilia-Romagna region, official provider of the Europass digital credentials, one of the tools under the framework of the European digital credentials themselves. And today we have a keynote speaker, very, very important for us to have here today to discuss this topic. We have here with us Kia Liticalo. She's a member of the European team on digital credentials for learning, Europe as a support and communications. And she will accompany us in exploring better step by step this initiative, also discussing and let's say discussing and also having the possibility to think about what kind of applications these Europass digital credentials can have in order to recognize and validate the competence of people achieved in any context according to a life learning approach, according to these individual learning accounts, as I said before. Thank you very much for your participation, Kia. In a minute, I will give the floor to you. Before starting with our presentation, please, just some basic rules. Keep your microphone off up to the end of the presentation, and please use the chat for any need of support you may have, or any question for our keynote speaker, Kia, you will have related to the various topics we are going to face in this workshop of today. At the end of the presentation, as I said, we will have a dedicated session for questions and answers, so the debate later on after the Kia's presentation. Thank you very much for attending, and Kia, the floor is yours. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Elena, for this introduction. Let me share my screen as well so we can start from there. I hope that you can all see it. Yes. If not, do let me know. Perfect. So as Elena already mentioned, I am part of the European Digital Credentials team as well as the Europass team, which are both projects of the European Commission, but handled by external contractors. So that is the team that I am representing here. Today, what we are going to go through is a quick overview of European digital credentials and their policy context at the European level. We will tackle why digital credentialing is the way forward and why this is popping up more and more as well, and specifically why European digital credentials. You will also have a quick overview on how to get started and a demo of tools on how to actually issue and build your digital credentials yourself, concentrating specifically on the micro-credentials, which is, of course, very much at the forefront at the moment. Before going any further, it would be interesting to address what is actually a digital credential. So a credential in its most essential form, or how we define one, is a documented statement containing claims made about the person. So this could be any kind of claim. This could be anything from a diploma to for instance, a letter of recommendation. When we think about credentials, we tend to think only about your master's degree diploma, for instance. We tend to think about it in terms of qualifications, something very, very formal, but we're seeing that this view is changing more and more on how we actually view credentialing and how this can be used. So a European digital credential, then, in how we're able to talk about this within this presentation, is a specific claim related to learning to a person, or to their skills or achievements in somehow related to what they know or what they have achieved in gaining skills or knowledge in their life. So this is indeed a project of the European Commission, but it is not a standalone project. European digital credentials are central to the European policy agenda when it comes to the digital label market and education. They are mentioned in the Digital Education Action Plan, in the micro-credentials recommendation, in the European data strategy, in building certain standards on how we describe learning and how we understand learning, and the acquisition of skills in Europe. It is part of achieving the European education area to create a common framework for education in Europe. It is part of individual learning account recommendations in how we can verify this learning that you achieve. And it is extremely central to the European skills agenda, where it is one of the tools in how we can concretely promote a skills-centered approach in the recognition of learning for individuals and citizens in Europe. So this is generally the context within which we are moving. And specifically, it is the Europass decision that provides the legal basis for your European digital credentials. And why Europass? if you're familiar with it, I'm sure that most of you might think of Europass as a CV builder template. You might even remember the old Europass that has been available since the early 2000s, where it was just a Word document that you could download to create a CV template. It was relaunched in 2020, and with the skills agenda, it is much more than that. It is meant to be a comprehensive tool to build an online portfolio, to record everything that has to do with a person's learning and career, to help them reflect and assess and prove also their knowledge within a single tool. And within this context, European digital credentials are then a tool to help them actually provide proof of their education, of the skills they have acquired, and to have a space to store them in Europass. We are talking about Europass as a way to store them and to have them there. However, we would like to highlight as well that this is not solely limited to Europass. This is a tool that can be used much wider than only within this context. But this is the starting point provided by the European Commission. And we now mentioned that this is central to the European Commission's policy agenda. However, why to have an actual European approach to digital credentials? It is to empower citizens to own their credentials. And what do we mean by this? It is when currently when you receive a paper credential from, let's say, a training center or a university, that is your copy. If it needs to be validated in any kind of way, you can provide a scan of this to a prospective employer, but this always has to be double checked with a university directly, meaning that you actually don't have control over your own data, because it always has to go through another check to have this final validation. You cannot therefore actually decide who you share your data with completely and what part of your data, because there's always a triple check that is going on when you have to have this validated. In this sense, having a digital version of it allows for you to be in control of your data and who you share it with. It helps reduce market fragmentation. By providing a single standard for digital credentials, it makes sure that these credentials can be understood throughout Europe in different instances without having to translate to make sure that they are interoperable with one another, whether it is in how the information is actually put in a credential, or whether it is in the technical aspects of it, how this credential is actually built. It's also creating a new skills database by actually providing a single way of providing this information, adding into creating standards on how all of this information is provided about the learner. I know that this can sound a little bit abstract at the moment, but we will see in visualizing the credentials what this actually means in practice. It also provides a possibility to make them credentials multilingual by default, avoiding potential issues related to translation. So if information is already available in several languages, you might not have to have a qualification or a credential recognized by another entity or translated. And in this way, helping removing barriers to recognition and providing additional transparency in how we understand this. And these are the objectives, and what are the actual benefits for people? It will capture all forms of learning if we have a single semantic standard that can cover not only higher education, but vocational training, informal training. It can provide a way to explain all of these types of learning and trainings. It can, in the same vein, address all levels of education. It is applicable to the whole course lifecycle and can be used in different ways, and promote interoperability and a single standard within Europe. And as this is a tool provided by European Commission, it is free and open source, so anybody can make use of it and use it for their own project without additional need of fees. And having understood why the European Commission wants to do this, what are the actual benefits for people? So for a citizen, it means that you can easily apply for a job because everything, your digital credentials are in one place, and you can build an online portfolio to track their learning, and you can present their credentials in a verified manner at any point. Education and training providers can build EU standard compliant credentials free of cost. This will also reduce their cost instead of having to provide paper credentials, or to actually transform them from paper to digital after a while. And they can also better understand the credentials provided by other institutions because they're using the same standard and the same language. And for employers, finally, this can dramatically reduce the time and cost of processing job applications, as all of the credentials would come in a single format. They would not have to try to understand how the different skills are presented, and they can better understand the credentials of candidates that are from another country, because it will also be in the same place. And finally, they will be able to actually verify whether these credentials are valid in an instant manner instead of having to provide additional checks. We have provided a general context of why this is important, but how is this important at this point? So this is not something that is coming from simply a policy perspective, but it is addressing a market need. Digital micro-credentials or regular credentials are constantly increasing in popularity. There is an increasing growth in the available open badges, so what type of badges can actually be provided to people, as well as the amount of issued open badges. These are currently in all types of different formats, meaning that you don't know which ones you would want to use, how you should understand the different needs, the different ones between them. If I have one from Google or one from Microsoft as an open badge or a different type of certification, how can I compare these? How can I understand what type of information they're providing? By providing a single standard, you're addressing this market fragmentation and allowing for a single comparable type of credential. And why are we wanting to have more and more open badges, more and more credentials that are being issued on a regular basis? It is because we are no longer seeing education as something that ends with your formal education. We're seeing the value of lifelong learning. We're seeing that the learning that you're undertaking is not something static. It happens all the time. You're learning as you go, whether it is through short courses that you're taking, through your job, through different hobbies that you're undertaking. You're constantly acquiring new skills, and it is the sum of all these skills that make the human capital of a single person or of individuals within a company. And it is these skills that should be understood in order to see what kind of person do you want to employ, what kind of person do you need in a certain position, and how can you understand whether this person has different skills or not. As a individual, then, you will have all this experience. You know that you have a certain type of skill set, but you do not know how you can communicate this, how you can optimize your own employability for these skills. You might have studied something that is completely different from what you're doing now, and you don't have anything as a credential to actually prove these skills that you have acquired in other ways. So there is an intrinsic need of having ways of actually proving these skills, of proving the knowledge that you have acquired in a single way. And it is much easier to do this, of course, if it is in a standardized manner instead of having a variety of different credentials. So this is where the skills come in. So having a standardized skill definition will allow you to understand how a individual is describing themselves, and you will be able to map that against the needs of a company, for instance, or you will be able as a person on the other hand to say, hey, these are actually the skills that companies are looking for. How can I actually portray these in my learning? You can, this is how we can make use of knowledge banks for skills acquisition as well. The credentials can then serve as an evidence of skills, whether it is through formalized learning, whether it is through individual assessments that you take just to prove your skills, or whether it is through a certification that you get from somebody who can testify to your knowledge or skills in any kind of way, for instance, an employer. So this helps us change the perspective from I want to study something and I want to have a qualification, but instead I want to learn and I want to acquire a certain skill set that I want to be able to prove that I actually have. So within this context, we understand that, okay, credentialing can be an interesting way of presenting this. But why should we then go for European digital credentials rather than any other type of digital credentials? European digital credentials are verifiable documented statements. So they are based on the W3C international standard for verifiable credentials. And they have an automatic check for validation of a credential, which is based on what is called an eIDAS seal. So this is basically a digital equivalent of a organization's rubber stamp. So they are digitally signed, and that seal cannot be broken without actually it being visible on the credential itself. Digital credentials are size neutral, meaning that the same format can be used for a complete diploma as well as only a certificate of participation. The same way of presenting the data will be used no matter what type of learning we are talking about. And this is based on the European learning model, which is a single data model for learning in Europe, allowing this type of information to be included in the credentials. Then, while we can do all types of credentials, it also does support micro-credentials that will help certify the learning outcomes of short-term learning experiences, as well as other ones. And the person's learning outcomes are always part of digital credentials and will be expressed as knowledge, skills, and competences, making it easy to see what is the actual value added of a certain certification in a credential. I will go through all of these things mentioned briefly. So I did mention that it is all based on a common standard, the European learning model. Not to get too technical, but this is at the heart of digital credentials. A learning model provides a single semantic standard for understanding learning in Europe. So it has a single set of properties, which are over 480, so close to 500 different properties, allowing you to really express any type of learning related data that you can possibly think of, and the different relationships between these data points. So you will be able to see that Anna Andromeda, who could be the credential subject. So she's the one who has received a credential. She was born on a certain date. That data is also used in another way for the digital credential itself. And all of these data points are linked to each other, and there's a certain structure on how to use it, meaning that this is always understood in the same way in a technical format, providing for interoperability, knowing that all these data points always refer to the same fields. You can use this to, for instance, fill an application automatically, or fill the data about a person automatically, because all this data is always structured in the same manner. And we already mentioned briefly the definition of a European digital credential, but understanding that it is based on the ELM. The ELM then provides the content. It provides the way we describe the the information that we actually want to add in a digital credential, so the learning outcomes, the skills, the description of the activities, and it is packaged in a certain way, which is what we can understand the envelope of a digital credential that seals it, that provides the technical standards that actually make sure that it is a verifiable credential and that it cannot be tampered with, and it is therefore secure and respects data privacy. And this is then what a digital credential would approximately look like. We mentioned that there is a specific format for it, that there is a seal, and it is valid. It will always be presented in the same way that you can check its validity and its verification system, and you will be able to visualize all the data about the credential itself. You can have it presenting qualifications as a main claim. You can have it presenting an activity as a main claim, so participation in a class or a non-formal learning event. It can include the assessments, and so a grade, a certain level of knowledge or skills, or an entitlement. So it can show how a person has what a person has a right to do based on this credential. For instance, if I have a bachelor's degree, I have a right to enroll in master's. If I have a certain qualification as a nurse, I have a right to work as a nurse. So these are what we refer to the entitlements. So it can really describe all the different types of credentials. All right. And how does this actually work in practice? We as the support team of European Digital Credentials and part of and the European Commission then provide standards that can be used. So that will be the European Learning Model and the source code behind these applications that can be used to create a European digital credential, and we provide services and software that you can actually use to create these yourself. These can be used in different packages, but today I will focus on how you can actually do it yourself at any point, at any time, through our services and what we call the online credential builder and issuer. And the online credential builder and issuer allows you to build compliant credential templates directly online, to issue credentials and send them to their owners, to store these credentials online in a wallet, and to verify these credentials and to share them onwards with other people or an organization. And to give you a better idea on how this actually works, let me show you what the EDC issuer and online credential builder looks like. So this is our main tool, and I am currently only already logged in, but to log in, you simply need a new login account, which I'm assuming many of you are already familiar with, but it's an authentication system that is available for anyone. So you do not need to actually become an accredited institution or anything. Anyone who would acquire an e-seal is able to issue digital credentials. You can then access the online credential builder, which is where you can create credential templates. To create a template, it is very straightforward. You will just click on create new credential table, add your credential title and your awarding body, as well as a valid from date. These are the only mandatory information in addition to a single claim. It is up to you to decide what kind of information you would add and what kind of information is pertinent for this specific credential. So you can really specify it to your own needs to make it as data rich or as simple as you would like, and customize it to your own needs. You will simply go through this template, adding the information as you go. So let's say that I would just want to add an achievement that I have participated in today's webinar. I would do this and say that it is awarded by an organization that I would have already created, and I would click save. And it's really easy to use and build on. And this is something that I encourage anyone who would be interested to try and to work with. And if you would have any questions, or you would need assistance on how to create a specific credential, you can always contact us and we are happy to help. So I have worked on my credential. I have created a template with all the information that I would like to have in it. How do I actually issue this to a person? It could not be really simple, so we can go through it now. For instance, I would simply click on issue. I would choose if I would want to download the Excel template to add recipients. This would be useful if there's too many. If I am just issuing it to a single person, I would add my own name or whoever would be receiving this. I would need to add either an email address or a wallet address if I would be familiar with it. A wallet is where you would actually keep a credential. And if I do not have this, it's fine. I would get it in my email and I would be able to add to my wallet. And once I have done this, I can choose to go to issue. I can see that the credential that I have created is valid in its format, and I can then seal the credential. Now I am contacting a key store that is storing our digital signature, and it has now found the different seals that are available in my computer, and I will choose this one that will then provide the information on who is actually sealing this credential, and it is sealed, and I am sending it to myself, and that is it. It's quite simple and should be straightforward for anyone to use. So what actually happens when you have received this credential? If I already have a wallet, and this is where Europass comes into play. Europass is the free of charge wallet linked to the European digital credentials infrastructure at the moment. So if my email address has a Europass wallet linked to it, I will automatically receive the credential in my Europass account under my library. So you will see that I have my CVs, and under here I also have a section that's called certificates and diplomas. And this is also where I would find my wallet ID if I would not be familiar with it. And here you can see that I have a variety of digital credentials. So all of them would be here, and I could choose to view them, or I can choose to share it with somebody else. In the viewing is where we can see how the information is actually portrayed in the digital credential. And I'm having a slight internet connection issue, it seems like. All right. Okay. Well, luckily enough, I should have one that is already open. So if I open a digital credential, this is what it will look like. As you can see, this is the one that has been shared with me because there is a credential link that will expire. So it is a share link. And this is the view that I could have for a credential, for instance, if I am a prospective employer and who is checking whether a person's credentials. So I'll be able to see that the authentication verification checks are passed, that the format of a credential is technically valid, that it has not been tampered with in that way, that there is a valid seal so that we can make sure that it is an organization with a real seal that has that is proving or that is standing behind the claims made in this credential. It has not been revocated. In this case, it doesn't have an accreditation linked to it. It is still valid. It is verified. So this is how I can see that this is a real verifiable credential and that it has not been tampered with in any way. So instead of having to, for instance, call a university to make sure that this is a valid credential, I can see this in a single click. And how do I then actually see some of the other information? We already mentioned micro-credentials earlier, and as we go through what can be seen in this credential, I thought it might be interesting to also refer to the Annex 1 of the micro-credentials recommendation that does provide some mandatory elements, so we can see how these are actually visualized here. So firstly, we will see that a micro-credential or a credential should always have a title, which is the first thing that is visible. We will then have information about the learner. So here we can see who has actually received this digital credential, Anna Andromeda. We can see her date of birth and her contact details, as well as a national identifier for her. The only mandatory information here would be the name and last name, or actually simply the name, depending on the country. And everything else is up to you, the issuer, to decide if it would add. We will always recommend some additional identifiers on top of simply the name, since this allows for better verification of the credentials. There might be thousands of Anna Andromedas in the world. Adding a date of birth or a national identifier makes it easier to verify that this is actually issued to the correct person. Then we will always have information about the awarding body and the issuers. And here we will have an interesting little tidbit that is in consideration of who can actually issue digital credentials. So this is the information that will always be visible on the organization. You can choose to input whatever information you would like when you're actually creating a credential, but when you're sealing it, this information will be replaced by the information in your e-seal. Your e-seal being your digital signature, it will always replace whatever you put in, meaning that it is not possible to fraud the system in saying that, hey, I am actually issuing a digital credential from MIT while you are not MIT, let's say. This will always replace it and will provide the information about the signing and sealing organization of the credential. So this is where this information will be about the awarding body. However, you can provide more information under the awarding body section as well. So this could be, for instance, if I am working with two different organizations. So one organization is sealing it on behalf of somebody else. I am a university alliance, and we are sealing the credential on behalf of all the universities in our alliance. But the awarding body is actually a single university within that university alliance. This can also allow you to have somebody else prove your learning outcomes of your students for you if you're not able to have a ECL yourself, and allowing to have this kind of distinction. All right, going back to our nice little annex here, we have the learning outcomes that are linked to an achievement. So here I have my achievement of a digital micro-credential creation. I have the linked learning outcomes that are communication, collaboration, and creativity. And these can be linked to related skills as well. So you can choose to which skill framework you would be referring to. We provide a direct link to ESCO, but you could also provide other skills framework if you should so prefer. We also need a notional workload possible. So we will have more information here that provides the volume of learning of this achievement. So it's 60 hours. We can also see that it is linked to ECTS, in this case, 2 of them. I could also choose to just write ECTS, it's up to me. I can see the EQF and the NQF level of this credential. I can see that the form of participation of a learning activity is there. It is a mode of it is a blended mode of learning. I can see in which language it was provided, and I can see even the prerequisites of getting this course or enrolling this course, so that the learner would need to have this EDC Online Credential Builder account. In this case, I can see that there are learning activities linked to this course, and it is an ECD building training course. I can see the information about the activity in the same way as about the achievement itself. I can also see that there is an assessment linked to this micro-credential. And I can see what type of assessment it was, that it was online, and that it was proven by unsupervised and without ID verification. And this can all be added as needed in both the mandatory and the optional elements list of the Annex 1 of the micro-credential recommendation. So this should also provide you an overview of how much information you can actually provide about a credential. It is really up to you as a provider to make it as granular as you would like, and to really showcase any kind of skills that a person might have achieved in it to the best way possible. We also mentioned multilingualism earlier. This particular credential has been created in English and English only, but this could be provided in several languages. So for instance, if I am in a country where we are speaking several languages, I could automatically, myself living in Belgium, could provide in French, Dutch, and German already, or to have it in English and the main country language of a country. But even without providing this information as the person who is issuing it, I can still choose to navigate this information in another language. So you will see that all the labels and everything will be now changed to French. So even without knowing what the language, I can still understand what kind of data is presented and understand quite a bit about the information that is provided in here. This is one of the ways that will help us navigate this and recognize these credentials across language barriers as well. All right, this is pretty much what I wanted to show digital credentials. I know it has been a lot, and I know that it can be a lot to soak in, so I am happy to address any questions that might have arisen during this presentation.
Thank you very much, Kia, for this inspiring presentation. We have, let's say, a lot of questions, and let's say because we are brainstorming while seeing your example, your demo. Some questions are related on how to create digital credentials, and you have shown us how to do with the issuer and step by step. I think that, well, more or less we have seen together how to proceed, and we can consider this first question answered. But for example, if we use digital credentials for proving any kind of achievements and the different learning context, another question is, in case of work experiences, work-based learning and achievements, how can I valorize and certificate these through this system?
All right, let me see if I should actually have a... No, unfortunately, I do not have specifically a letter of recommendation, but I could create a European digital credential as a letter of recommendation. So for instance, I could have, instead of a participation certificate here, I could have a letter of recommendation for Kia Likitalo certifying that I have acquired this and these skills, and this is the type of worker that I was during this particular job opportunity. And that person would then be able to, similarly to a educational experience, add learning outcomes, add skills that were linked to the different activities, certify that I have achieved these skills during a work activity as well. Would that be answering the question?
I think so. Or what about Emilia? Do you think that just as a first answer, we can further elaborate this and try to think? In any case, we can adapt. If I understand correctly, we can adapt this issue according to our learning context, learning objectives, kind of training path, formal, informal learning. So the question is, the main question is, or the main point is the affordability, let's say, of the issuer, and for that we have to ask for a qualified seal recognized by the system.
An advanced or a qualified e-seal, yes. So these are provided by trusted providers in any EU country, and in order to acquire one, the main requirement, or the only requirement, is that you need to have a legal entity based in the European Union. That is, and after that, you can contact a trusted provider in your country or in another that will be able to help you with that process. I'm happy to send the link on to who you can contact as well in the chat.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Let's say you can write your questions in the chat, or you can open your microphone at this point, no problem, just to, let's say, nourish the debate. I have a question for you, Kia, while let's say waiting for other questions for participants. Let's say, considering the application of this system step by step according to long life learning. So I have a degree at university, then I have a master's degree at first level, and then I try my lifelong learning experience through a training course at training provider focused on green skills. Then I participated in a set of workshops, thematic workshop of any kind. So, and I have different providers and different issuer. So, for example, university, one back center, one youth association, etc. If I have a wallet, let's say, or in any case, being always Elena Romanini, may have, let's say, may I found all these certifications in a unique place here in the system, and also providers or employers, for example, willing to check my previous path can they enter in the system and having an overview of my portfolio, let's say, of my digital credentials as a whole?
Yes, so indeed you would be able to have all those credentials in one place, as long as we're issuing them in a EDC compliant format. They can all be held in a single wallet, and they would be portrayed in a similar way, so it's easy to navigate how the different training and educational opportunities actually have added to your own personal portfolio and whatever skills that are provided by each of them. You will be able to view them all in your wallet. So for instance, in your Europass library, a prospective employer, for instance, would not have access to this. This is personal to you, and this is because one of the main tenets of European digital credentials is that you're in control of your own data. You choose what information you share with whom and for how long. However, if I would want to create a portfolio that I'm sharing with an employer, I could either choose to select only some of my certificates or even all of them, and I could create a share link. I could specify to which employer I'm sharing them to, for which reason, for how long. For instance, I might not be comfortable sharing my data for longer than the application period for a job is. And I would then generate a link based on this that I can then copy. And if I would open this link, it will have an overview of the credentials that I decided to share with the person. And this will only be available for the time frame that I choose, and they can still choose to enter all of these and actually verify their validity and that they have not been tampered with.
Fine, thank you very much. So we have some other questions. For example, Theodora asked why the date of birth and the national ID of the national ID is necessary in the completion of the digital credential.
So they are not necessary. In this case, we had provided them because it is recommended to add some additional information about the learner's identity on top of a simple of a name. Let's assume, well, my name is actually unique in the world, so I'm fine. But if you're called John Smith, there might be quite a few John Smiths who would be able to have to show this credential as theirs, even though it is not. So it's always preferable to add some sort of additional identifier for the learner to be able to prove their identity and that it is their credential. So
they are strongly recommended, not mandatory, but let's say preferable to insert in the completion of the framework. Another question is related to the HIS seal again, or qualified seal. So it's something related to a person working in an organization as a trainer, HR responsible for training to the training department, or something linked to the organization that will be the provider, the issuer.
It will always be linked to the provider. An e-seal is a seal for an organization. So I compared it to the rubber stamp of an organization, that it's really representing the organization as a legal entity, not you as a teacher or as a training provider.
Even the legal representative, so not a person, but the organization. So we have to be clear with the provider of the signature, I understand, right?
Indeed, and an e-seal cannot be provided for a person. It will always be for an organization.
Okay. So any other question? Alessandro, please.
Yeah, I have a very, very awkward question. If from your observatory, you are able to tell us the profile of those who issue, or those who create this certification, this credential, I mean, I would think it would be absolutely prior now, for example, for training institutions start entering this mechanism. So from now on to have generations who only have registered credentials on a digital level, okay, not any more papers, diplomas on the wall and so on. So what is happening right now, according to your perspective, who is more active in this digital credential mechanism?
Indeed. A small note here that as this is a public endeavor, we do not collect data on who is actually using our services. So it is completely, we're depending on what people report to us, but we're having more and more universities and vocational training providers who are using this to issue credentials. In many cases, it starts as a pilot for micro-credentials that are easier to create, that are easier to launch, with the idea of scaling this up. However, there are also national initiatives, such as in Spain, where they're planning on having universities issue digital credentials only in the future, even though this is also in a transition and a very new phase. The project started earlier in this year, and we're seeing more and more of these national initiatives as well.
So here in Emilia-Romagna, for example, the region is launching a test on open batch. So it's involving vet centers, universities, etc., and trying to cooperate in this pilot project in order to move towards digital credentials, not only for adults, but also for students, and let's say trainees in general at different level of education. We will see in last month what will happen. So we have another question from Sarah. Will this tool be integrated in LMS, Learning Management System? Sarah, sorry, open your microphone, please, because I don't think to understand completely your question.
I understand the question, it's fine.
Okay. So you can explain us the question as well, please.
So the idea is indeed that this could be integrated into learning management systems. It's conversations that we're having with some of the larger ones as well, and especially at least to start using the European learning model that I mentioned during the presentation. So to at least have the data presented in the same model in the LMS, so that this could be directly imported in the same way to the digital credentials would be the starting point. But it is something that we're working on, but unfortunately not quite there yet.
Okay, so under development, let's say, we will see in some months. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's say it's 4 p.m. We are going to close our webinar. We can have time for the last question to Kia, please. So feel free to answer, open your microphone. Last question or not?
Yeah, I can ask Jarkko Jussila from Aalto University Executive Education. So basically, what should sort of organization do if you want to start giving like digital credentials or in terms of the standards? So what's the steps to take this solution into use?
So I would suggest going in, if I understood correctly, so what you should concretely start doing if you would want to issue credentials.
Yes, based on the solution,
yeah. I would suggest accessing our issuer and start entering the information that you have available into the template builder to see how the information that you currently have fits into the European learning model structure. If you do this directly in the template, it will automatically have to comply with that format. So it will give you a general idea if there's information that you're missing, or if there's something that you might have to structure in a different way. And then getting an e-seal would be the next step after that. And of course, if you have any specific questions, you can always get in touch with us.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. So we can, of course, share with you the supporting materials of today. We have registered the encounter, as you know, so also these as evidence will be available on our T-HAP website. And we can stay in contact for next appointments. We are preparing the next infusion workshop, so stay posted for the new meeting in a month and a half. Thank you very much, Kia, for this presentation. Please feel free to share with us any other supporting document you may have or instruction guideline in order, let's say, to have the possibility to go in depth, referring to the different concepts and procedures we have seen. And thank you all of you for participating in our infusion workshop of today.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you very much.
Day ahead. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.